Hello, BookTube. I'm here with a video, I guess in lieu of my usual Sunday reads. One that I've been thinking of doing for a little while. I'm in front of my, upstairs here, in front of my reference collection. As you can see, I've got part of a shelf and part of another one emptied. And I'm going to talk about encyclopedias in a rough sense. But and before I start, I just want to know, I when I turn on my camera here, it had a setting for beauty. Has it worked? I don't know. Well, you can see Paddington's there, so Paddington's curious as well as whether the beauty setting has worked. But let's get into the science fiction, mostly science fiction. There's uh, a couple of fantasy ones, which we'll leave to the end. Um, and I'll go to more sort of general. I'll start out with general ones and move to more specific, I guess. This was actually one that probably the first one that I ever bought. This copy. This is a rough copy. It's been dinged at the top. But I like this, and when I was resetting up my reference collection here, I decided to get it. It's a nice little one. It's well illustrated, and it's got an introduction by um, our forward by Isaac Asimov, and the consultant editor was Robert Holdstock. Um, and so it says here, I obtained a master's degree in medical zoology before turning writer in 1975. Um, when he sold his first major novel, he has been reading and writing science fiction since he was 9 years old and is one of the brightest young talents in this field today. Well, is he? Well, so it says here. This was published. There's a lot of editions of it. Octopus. This is Octopus Books, 1978. But it's just a wonderful compendium of pictures, um, and it's got sections like locations, modern perspective science fiction, marriage of science and fiction by Brian Stapleford, major themes by Douglas Hill. Mike Ashley, a little chapter on pulps and magazines, Screen Trips by Alan Frank, Machine as Hero, Harry Harrison, Alien Encounter, Chris Morgan, Art and Artists by David Hardy, Fact to Fiction by Patrick Moore, the astronomer, and then another one, Outer Limits, The Worldwide Following by Michael Ashley again. And The New Wave, Christopher Priest, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow by Malcolm Edwards, and a catalog compiled by Robert Holstock, Roy Kettle, Mike Ashley, and Alan Frank, and then the selected fact index. But as I say, it's full of wonderful. There's Chris, that must be Chris, Chris Foss, yeah. Some wonderful artwork in here. I'm not sure if you ever read any of the books that he illustrated the covers of, but it's like I say, there's a lot of stuff in here, and the essays are pretty good. It's just a general, the illustrated sort of history. What's it called? Yeah, an encyclopedia of science fiction. And the little foreword by Isaac Asimov is interesting, and it's not, well, it's, there's a few words there, and you can see them in profile. So yeah, so there's that one. That was my very first, I think, encyclopedia that I ever had. Now I figure out where to put this. Sort of. Okay. Now we go into a little more detailed ones. This is the ultimate encyclopedia of science fiction, the definitive illustrated guide. Well, that's a bit of hyperbole on there, but it is edited by David Pringle, who was the editor of Interzone, the British science fiction magazine. And he's also an expert on J.G. Ballard, but I won't hold that against him. And here it is. It says, David Pringle is best known as editor, publisher, and co-founder of the Hugo Award-winning science fiction magazine Interzone. He has also written several science fiction stories, including Earth is Alien Planet, J.G. Ballard science fiction, the 100 best novels, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is, again, it's an illustrated. It's a little more in depth, I would suppose, but it's written, it's edited by him. And it's, I'm not sure. I think he wrote everything that's in it, basically. That's what I'm not 100% sure with this one, because there's no names for any of the authors for these, and then they're very general, again, because it's illustrated. It's a fun one to go through. It goes right up to even Star Trek, where there's Locutus. And even the Ray Bradbury Theater, little picture from an episode of the Ray Bradbury Theater. Everything. There's Frederick Pohl, like little inserts. As you can see, the entries are fairly sparse, but it's interesting. Again, this was put out by several publishers as well. This one is Carlton. And do I have a date here? Carlton, 1996. This was first published. So we'll see is in a little while, we'll see sort of the bigger version, its Big Brother's version of this. And a number of these have the Big Brother version. They all do from now on. This one I do like. It's by James Gunn. Again, an introduction by Isaac Asimov. It's called Alternate Worlds, an Illustrated History of Science Fiction. And this is written by James E. Gunn. He's a science fiction historian as well as science fiction author. And it goes through right from the beginning, the shape of the present, in the beginning towards Verne, 1800 1885, then the Victorian engineer, birth of mass magazines, profit of progress, the rise of the pulps, amazing decade, 1926 to 36, Hugo Gernsback's decade, you might as well say, expanding universe, 30 to 40, astounding editor, 38 to 50, The Big Boom, 1940 to 55, Alternate Worlds, 49 to 65, and The Shape of Things to Come. And there's more text to it, but it is illustrated. But as you can see, there's a lot more text with red ink in it as well, and there's sections showing magazine covers. And it's a nice larger size. These ones are larger size. So it's a good general encyclopedia. It's illustrated history, but it's still an encyclopedia. I'm calling it an encyclopedia, okay? And you get his view on things, which I do like him as a writer, so it's worth seeing. But again, there's a Big Brother for this one as well, to a certain extent. And then here's another one. It's Science Fiction, the Illustrated Encyclopedia by John Clute. Now, he is one of my favorites of writing about science fiction. This was published... I noticed this before. I don't know why the pages are stuck together here. There's something that has gotten on these pages. Like when I move, things happened to books. I'm not going to rip those apart. I'm trying to find the date. 1995. Publisher is Dorling Kingsley. Yeah, it's a DK. Dorling Kingsley book. And again, it's by one author. It's put together, but it's very. This is more encyclopedia style because there's little articles, I guess, or little bits of for authors, style of science fiction, the history of. There's a nice sort of timeline through with book covers and the bigger events throughout history of science fiction, and it goes right up. And lots of nice illustrations of magazine covers. So again, a general one, but we'll see its big brother in a little while also. Another one that's not so much I guess not so much an encyclopedia, but it is to a certain extent. I put it in my encyclopedia section anyway. It's Out of This World, science fiction, but not as you know it, by Mike Ashley, the Michael Ashley that wrote the articles or the chapters in the first book that I showed there. And this was published by the British Library, and it's actually signed by Mike Ashley. And published 2011. And again, a lot of nice artwork throughout. Obviously, this is War of the Worlds on the cover, as you say, signed copy. And Metropolis from the film. And again, it's just a general overview, but as he says, it's a little different because he goes right back 1,000 years, and he's even have manuscript. This is a page from early draft by J.G. Ballard, sadly, but oh well. There we go. And yeah, so that's another one. Now we'll get into more conventional ones, and we've got here that I've seen this around on BookTube. It's okay. It's very, very brief, but if that's all you want, then it's useful. It's a science fiction source book by David Wingrove, edited and forwarded by Brian W. Aldiss. Now, this Brian W. Aldiss wrote a great history of science fiction. First of all, called Billion Year Spree, and then David Wingrove helped expand it, called it Trillion Year Spree. So they've teamed up for this one as well. And this was published in 1984 by Longman, but it is very, very brief. Like, there you go. There's Arthur C. Clarke, and it's like, 2-columned. So it's got a brief overview of the author, a little biography, listing some of his books, and giving a star system, which I don't really care for. But then you got Rod Serling. It's got pictures as well, obviously. Now you got Theodore Sturgeon. And yeah, it's very, very brief, but again, it's something. At the time, it was a handy one volume thing that it was easy to find. So that was pretty good. Here's another one that is relatively new to me, by Charles Platt, who was a computer programmer. I think he's still alive. But he also started writing about some science fiction and about science fiction, and published his own sort of fanzine about the history of science fiction. Now, this is, as it says, Who Writes Science Fiction? An amazing journey into the minds of 30 top science fiction writers. This is Savoy Books, in association with New English Library, 1980. And it is literally a biography, but it's a little, like, they're little essays, so it's a little more in depth of specific writers and talking about their books. Like, I was flipping through it before I did the video, and I got to Frank Herbert. Let's see if I can find it again here. Because it's his very first line is interesting for the Frank Herbert. Oh, I don't think they're in alphabetical order. I probably won't be able to find them. But it says, the very first line is, I've not read Dune. I've not read Dune. So anyway, so yeah, it's a nice little, handy little thing to look up. This one's kind of nice, but it has its limitations. This is an Oxford Dictionary of Science Fiction, edited by Jeff Prucher. Introduction by Gene Wolfe. That is the science fiction author. Now, this is literally what it says. It's a dictionary. So you've got all the themes like the light sail, Lunarian, Luna, and it has references to where these things show up in major books or stories. Like, for instance, Earth Folk, dystopian. But it would be nice if there was a listing for its origins. Like, I mean, they're real, like the first time that concept was used. It has it sort of, and sometimes I know I'm being vague there, but it is vague in the book, so that's the downfall of it. It's not as good as it could be. This is published in 2007 by Oxford University Press. Now the encyclopedia here, the illustrated ultimate encyclopedia of science fiction that I showed you, and I said there was this sort of big brother. This is the second index to the ultimate. Again, a lot of hyperbole in this. Ultimate Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, second edition. It's A to Z of science fiction books by title, by David Pringle. And that's exactly what it is. It's very brief synopsis of the books and his thoughts on it, if he has any thoughts on that specific book, which he usually does. And it's quite interesting. He gives sort of a star system as well, which, again, I'm not a fan of the star systems. This was published in 1995. First edition was in 1990. This is by Scholars Press, and actually I've got a signed copy. So yeah, so there we've got that. Now here's another one that is sort of the bigger brother of the James Gunn one, the Alternate Worlds. This one here. And it's the New Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, edited by James Gunn. This is published 1988. And again, it's James Gunn, so I do like his writing and his comments on things, and it's got all the essays that are in here, like aphorisms, beginnings, biology, British Commonwealth, the business of science fiction, cataclysm and catastrophe, children's science fiction, collaboration, comic strips, cosmology, cryogenics, cyberpunk, dime novels, and just so on. And it is illustrated as well. I think it's all black and white illustrations. Nope, there is an insert of color illustrations, which is kind of nice. I think it was for this edition. Yeah, it's a brief one, but I enjoy it because of who put it together and who is writing the articles or the essays. Now, let's move on to Something else that is quite nice. It's an older one. Oh, this is a 3-volume. This was the best of its time. It's hard to see this, but it's Encyclopedia of Science Fiction and Fantasy. 3 volumes compiled by Donald H. Tuck. And it was published, excuse me, by Advent Publishers out of Chicago. And originally, the first volume came out in 1974, and then 78 for volume 2, and 1882 for volume 3. Now, these are, it's a biographical survey of the fields of science fiction and fantasy and weird fiction through 1968. And it's the who's who, A to L. And it's, alphabetical by author or even illustrator and so forth. But it's got a little biography of the person and a pretty good bibliography of the author. With all the information on it, say how many pages, just all sort of bibliographical detail, which was nice in this. So it's page after page. So that's A to L, and then we've got volume 2, which is M to Z, and it's the same deal. Just, 2 columns of that information. Then we've got volume 3 that was followed up, and this is a biographical. This is miscellaneous, but it's got it's basically lists by author. There's several different. There's paperback authors, and it lists the kind of authors or the books that they did, but also we can go through and find publishers like New American Library, and a listing of their publications with their numbers and dates, the number of the series, and it goes through all the different publishers. Armed Forces editions. It's got the listing and all the bibliographical information. And this volume is quite good. It's got a pseudonyms section on it too. Magazines. It's got a general overview of the major magazines. So this is something that was an essential one. I did have this in Canada, and it was my sort of go-to encyclopedia of the time. Now, I'm going to leave what I think is the best to last for science fiction ones. Now, there's a newer one here, which is quite interesting. It's a 3-volume. It's a Greenwood Encyclopedia of Science Fiction and Fantasy. And this is edited by Gary Westfall. And it is Themes, Works, and Wonders. It's basically exactly what it says. It's themes. So if you want to look up themes, desert. There's a little essay on deserts. Dark fantasy, darkness, death, decadence, fathers, feminism, fin de siècle, fire, first contact, fish and sea creatures, hive minds, hollow earth, homosexuality, horror, horses, hubris, humanity, humor, magic realism, magical objects, maps, marriage, and we'll show you what it looks like on the inside. This is an expensive set. It's still in print, I believe. I don't think they've got a new edition of it, but here we go. Looking Backward by Edward Bellamy, and you got a summary of the book. And this is the 3rd volume, which has classic works of science fiction, and it's It's a listing of the books and a summary, discussion about the book, and then a bibliography about the author or the book itself. So, and this was published, as I said, by Greenwood. 2005 is volume 3, and I think they all came out at the same time, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 2005. So they were done naked hardcovers, sort of library binding, I guess you would call it. Now, the best sort of science, in my opinion, science fiction encyclopedia. Now, we'll look at the first edition of it, and this was edited by Peter Nichols. This is the science fiction encyclopedia. This was put out in 1979, and Peter Nichols is an Australian editor, and I like this. It's brief, like little snippets, essays through it, but and written by other contributors. But it's got a lot of photographs in it, which is kind of interesting. It's triple columned, so you get a lot into this book. So this was an essential encyclopedia as well for me. Between that one and the Advent one, this was one of the essential ones. But they decided to later up their ante with it, and got John Clute to do the massive second edition encyclopedia of science fiction. And this is the second edition. This is Orbit, published 1993, and then reprinted 94. And the consulting editor was Brian Stableford, and there's a whole list of contributors to the book as well. If I can find it here. Yeah, here we go. No, that's not the list. Oh, it is. There's a checklist of themes. I don't see. Most of it, I think, is written by Nichols and John Clute, but there were other contributors to this. And it's a little more extensive than the original edition. It's double column, but there are no pictures in it. And it's got a biography of the author, if there is an author, that is the listing or the book, and then there's bibliographical information. They have since done the fourth edition, which is online, and it's the fourth edition by virtue of the third edition going online at, I think, Gateway. I think it was part of Golan's. It was a science fiction site, and then they had to move from there. So when they put it to their new site, it's called the fourth edition. Now, it's updated almost daily, so there's a lot of information on there. It'd be impossible to put that into a book form now. But I still love this for just picking up and going through it, and also comparing it to the original edition. Now, they didn't stop there, or John Clute didn't stop there. He did, excuse me, showing top of my head. He did the Encyclopedia of Fantasy. So this is not science fiction per se, but I'm adding this and another book in. The Encyclopedia of Fantasy. It's on the same basis. This was 1997 published, and it's John Grant instead of Peter Nichols. And it's the same type of thing. There's Fu Manchu entries and say, look somewhere else in it in the encyclopedia. And yeah, so it's the same thing, and this is online as well. Now and then there's one other fantasy one. I mentioned David Pringle, and we had the Ultimate Encyclopedia of Science Fiction. So we've got the ultimate encyclopedia of fantasy, the definitive illustrated guide. And it's got a foreword by Terry Pratchett, and it's edited by, general editor is David Pringle. And it's very much the same. There's Conan on the back cover. It's very much the same as the science fiction one, very illustrated, very brief. This was published, again, I believe this was a few different publishers. Carlton Books, 1998, and just find a half decent page with pictures on. But yeah, it's double columned, and again with magazine covers, pictures of authors. It's partially thematic, but also like by authors. Let's see what the introduction. Yeah, it's got types of fantasy, television fantasy, who's who of fantasy, A to Z of fantasy characters and entities, fantasy games, fantasy worlds, fantasy magazines, and a glossary of fantasy. So there you go. There is my listing, or my shelf and a bit of encyclopedias. Now, do you use any of these, or do you have other ones that you could recommend that I may not be aware of? The general ones I only like because of certain authors, but if there are other more in-depth encyclopedias that I'm unaware of, I'm very interested. So thank you very much, BookTube.